Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, everyone. How are you today? I hope all of you are great. First of all, let's praise and thanks our God Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala because of His mercy and blessing, so we can still learn in our home with good condition. Second, salawat and salam always delivered to our Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, who has brought us from the darkness into the brightness. The Honorable Sir Umar Abdullah PhD as our lecturer of English Language Teaching Management, and unforgettable my beloved friends. Well, we're from Group 1. My name is Nazib Al-Faki Ahmad, and my partners are Melda Sri Janeri, Putri Pertama Lestari, Putri Ayu Hapso, dan Vira Junior. Last time we discussed rules and procedures, and this week we're going to discuss disciplinary interventions. Before we start, let's open today's presentation by saying Basmalah together. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Okay, I'm going to explain the first material. It is the research and theory. In this chapter, we address the disciplinary interventions an individual classroom teacher can use. In more specific terms, we address the strategies teachers can use when students do not follow the rules and procedures that have been established as described in last time. A meta-analysis by Scott Stage and David Kires in 1997 included 99 studies, 200 experimental comparisons, and more than 5,000 students. Their overall finding was that, in general, disciplinary interventions resulted in a decrease in disruptive behavior among almost 80% of the subjects in the studies they analyzed. Four of the categories of disciplinary behaviors identified by Stage and Kires are particularly relevant to the discussion here. They are: the first one is reinforcement, the second one is punishment, the third one is no immediate consequences, and the last one is combined punishment and reinforcement. Disciplinary techniques that fall into Stage and Kires' category of reinforcement involve recognition or reward for positive behavior or for timely causation of negative behavior. Practices classified as punishment involve some type of negative consequences for inappropriate behavior. As the name implies, interventions that are classified as no immediate consequence do not involve immediate consequences for inappropriate behavior, but do involve some type of reminder when an inappropriate behavior appears. Finally, the category of combined punishment and reinforcement involves recognition or reward for appropriate behavior in conjunction with consequences for inappropriate behavior. Then at least two rather striking aspects characterize the findings supported in Figure 1. You can look at our textbook. The first, the interventions that do not include any type of reaction, positive or negative, to student behavior have the lowest effect size. It is minus 6d4, which, although it is the lowest effect size, is certainly not small. This makes good intuitive sense. And then the second is apparently contradicting the position of those who reject any form of punishment as a viable disciplinary activity. The effect size for interventions that use punishment is quite respectable. It is minus 77. A note of caution is appropriate here. These findings should not be interpreted as an indication that any form of punishment is viable. Well, in all of the findings of Stage and Kires strongly support the positive impact of disciplinary techniques. In fact, their findings lead Stage and Kires 1997 to comment. In summary, this meta-analytic study demonstrates that interventions to reduce disruptive behavior work in public schools. We hope that these findings serve to separate the myth that disruptive classroom behavior cannot be effectively managed from the reality that intervention widely used in our schools do. In fact, reduce disruptive behavior. Well, guys, that's all my explanation, and Fira Junior will explain the next material.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Let me introduce myself. My name is Vira Junior. I'm from Group 1. Today I would like to discuss about disciplinary. I will explain part program. Program is the main activity that will be carried out to implement the learning strategies that have been set. In program, there are two disciplinary techniques, it's namely think time and assertive discipline. The first, think time. Think time, according to Nelson and Carr's statement in 1999, is a highly structured program that has been shown to decrease disruptive behavior in students as well as increase student engagement. And C. Sugai and Kolpin statement in 1996 for a review of the research. It has been three basic goals from think time technique. The first, to provide for consistent consequence across all teachers in the school when students engage in disruptive behavior. The second, to provide students with feedback for their disruptive behavior and to allow for planning to avoid future incidents of such behavior. And the last, to enable teachers and students to cut off negative social exchange and initiate positive ones. One of the defining features of think time is the think time classroom. Dedicated room where students are sent when teachers cannot successfully address a disruptive behavior in the context of their regular classroom. Teachers follow specific procedure for addressing inappropriate or disruptive behavior and make every attempt to do so in the context of regular classroom. However, if student cannot or will not respond to efforts to the think time classroom, the student will send to regular classroom where they are expected to analyze and think seriously about their behavior. They do not return to the regular classroom until they demonstrate that they are aware of behavior that led to their assignment to the think time classroom. Okay, the next technique, assertive discipline. According to Cantor in a statement in 1976, is widely used program based originally on traditional behavior modification approach in which misbehavior result in specific consequence. One of scientists do not agree with this assertive discipline technique. It's Kohn expressed the opinion that assertive discipline is fundamentally flawed. He also noted even if it did succeed in keeping order in the classroom, this program like all carrot and stick technique. But the other researchers do not share Kohn's negative opinion and believe that a careful analysis of the research on the program leads to a different conclusion. Implementing the current version, the second step is for teachers to learn about and practice assertive behavior. Ideally, teachers practice assertive behavior until it becomes habitual. In general, assertive teacher response convey disapproval in a theme, an emotional, business-like manner and include a communication of expected behavior. The third step is to establish limits and consequences to signal students that they are approaching a limit. Teachers give hints to alert students, ask questions, and occasionally make demands. The fourth step is following draft on consequence if a student has exceeded the limit. And the last step is to implement a system of rewards or positive consequence for positive behavior. These changes in assertive discipline are substantive and have transformed it into a program that employs a balance of negative and positive consequence as opposed to negative consequence only as is common thought.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Putri Pratama-Lestari. Today I will explain about action steps. There are two action steps, action step 1 and action step 2. I will explain about action step 1. Employ specific technique that acknowledge and reinforce acceptable behavior and acknowledge and provide negative consequence for unacceptable behavior. Meta-analysis identified 5 categories of disciplinary intervention that can be used to provide a balance of positive and negative consequence. Teacher reaction, tangible recognition, direct cause, group contingency, and home contingency. The first one, teacher reaction. Verbal and physical teacher reaction are the simplest ways to acknowledge and reinforce acceptable behavior and to acknowledge and provide negative consequence for unacceptable behavior. Emer Everton and Wortham 2003 list a variety of teacher reactions that include the following. Make eye contact with an offending student by moving closer to her. This is a subtle but powerful way of alerting a student to the fact that she is misbehaving. Second, use a psycho signal such as a finger to the lip or shake of the head to indicate that a given action is inappropriate. The third, if a student is not following a procedure, provide the student with a simple verbal reminder, ideally as privately and subtly as possible. You might also state the expect appropriate behavior. The fourth, if a student is simply off task but not misbehaving, simple state the desired appropriate behavior. Fourth, if a student does not respond to the more subtle intervariation, simply tell the student to stop the inappropriate behavior. Stimulus cueing is another teacher reaction strategy. It involves providing a cue to student before inappropriate behavior occurs. For example, a teacher might determine that a specific student usually starts talking to other students around him before he engages in a more severe disruptive behavior. With this prior condition identified and communicated to the student, the teacher might place a mark on a notepad that is kept open on the student desk every time the student begins talking to others around him, thus providing a private cue to the student that he is about to engage in an activity that will probably result in negative consequences for him. The example above all address inappropriate behavior. Teacher reaction is also an effective technique for reinforcing appropriate behavior. In their book, Discipline with Dignity, Richard Kerwin and Alan Mander, 1988, describe a strategy they refer to as cheating a student being good. In summary, teacher reaction is a strategy forward and powerful way to provide both positive and negative consequences for a student behavior. Tangible recognition. As its name indicates, tangible recognition involves the use of some considered symbol of appropriate behavior. Sometimes approaches in this category are referred to as token economics because they frequently involve providing some type of a cheat for appropriate behavior or cession of inappropriate behavior. Students later exchange the token for privileges, activity, or items. At first, the research on token economics was focused on improving positive behavior only. However, research has demonstrated that tokens are most effective if awarded for positive behavior and taken away for negative behavior. Tangible recognition involves any type of considered recognition or reward provided by the teacher. It is important to note that any system of tangible recognition should be accompanied by thorough discussion of the rationale behind the system. The next material will be explained by Putri Ayu Hapso.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Putri Hapso. Today I will explain about direct cause, group contingency, and home context. Okay, first is direct cause. Direct cause toward negative consequences than positive consequences for student behavior. In this action, step 1, direct cause, interaction teacher with student is important. For example, use of isolation timeout requires that students have clear understanding so that specific behavior that will lead to use. And overcorrection is a procedure that is used when a student has misbehaved in a way that destroy and alterates some physical aspect of the classroom. Mean the student would be asked to overcompensate for behavior so that can make student understand about the consequences. And the second is group contingency. Group contingency techniques operate in a patient similar concrete recognition techniques, except they apply to pre-established group of students as opposed to individuals, and these techniques require every student in a group meet to behavior characterization for a group to earn credit. And the last is home contact, and these techniques need face-to-face method, or can we say the teacher come to the student house and talk their parent to discuss how to give consequence for students, and these techniques can be powerful form positive or negative consequences. Okay, thanks.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Melda Srijaneri Watmia. Today I would like to explain about action step 2. Action step 2 talk about teachers must set a rule or limit of students by using a method of recording their behavior that aims to find out the good or bad behaviors of students, and the record can be evidence for teachers giving consequences or penalties according to violations they have committed. Okay, I think enough.
Well, guys, that's all our presentation today. Before we end today's presentation, let's say Hamdalah together. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. And finally, we do apologize for our mistakes in explanation, and thank you very much for your great attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.